Good morning. Today is Sunday. It is the 30th day of Tishrei, which makes it the first day of Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan. So happy Chodesh to everyone. We are in the middle of chapter 25 of Igeret HaKodesh, the letters of the Alter Rebbe. And in that special chapter, the Alter Rebbe addresses explaining a statement of the Baal Shem Tov, which some misunderstood, couldn't understand, when the Baal Shem Tov said that even when a wicked person tries to interfere from the service of Hashem, God himself dwells in that wicked person. And Alter Rebbe explains this in length in this chapter, the idea that everything, no matter what happens in this world, everything is from Hashem and happens by Hashem. And therefore, there's no reason to get angry. On the contrary, that explains the statement that it says in Zohar that if anybody gets angry, he's considered as if he worships idols. So the Alter Rebbe continues in this chapter explaining in length the way the system works, the way Hashem comes down to this world in different levels. So we continue today. He's talking about the different intellectual and emotional levels that correspond to Hashem's Sephiras, Hashem's attribute, which is in the human being. So let's look inside. It says the Alter Rebbe, "V'hinei nefesh ha'adam yadua lakoil shehi klula miyud spheres." Now it is known to all that the soul of man is compounded of 10 spheres, the 10 attributes. Chochma, Bina, Das is the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, and so on. Now, even though these all derive from the breath of Hashem's mouth, as it is written, that Hashem blew, it blew into his nostrils the soul of life. Nevertheless, he says, there is also the individual connection. There is the general connection that everything comes from Hashem, from the breath of Hashem. But in the more specific way, there is the intellect corresponds to the godly intellect, and the emotions correspond to the godly emotions, and so on. So that's what Alter Rebbe says. The Prat, more specifically, Chabad shebenafshay, hein dugma lechabad shebeyud spheres. The Chabad, the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, the intellectual faculties that is in the soul of man, they are analogous to the 10, to the Chabad, to the Chochma, Bina, Das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge within the 10 spheres. And they are referred to as Abba and Ima. Abba meaning father and mother. Why? Because the intellect, they that create the emotions. So that's what they are. The intellect is called the father and the mother. Now the emotions, the emotional attributes in the soul, which is the love and fear, and they are analogous to the emotive attributes in the 10 spheres, which are called in the name of Ze'er Anpin, the minor visage. This is the spheres, the emotional attribute, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, and so on, are called Ze'er Anpin. V'koyach adibur shebenafshoy dugma ladibur ha'elyon. Now, there is the faculty of speech in a person's soul. This is analogous to the supernal speech, anikra b'shem malchus u'shchina, and that is called. This is known as the Sephir of Malchus and the Shechina, as we learned in the previous lesson. Now, there is something very important. The fact that our speech corresponds to the supernal speech, everything what we do, it arouses the spiritual counterpart. So he says that's why when you study Torah using speech, not just thinking Torah, but actually verbalizing, this arouses the corresponding speech from above. So being that speech from above is the communication to us, just like speech by a human being. You don't need speech for yourself. The speech mainly is to communicate with the outside. And the same thing is in by Hashem, the speech, so to speak, from Hashem, is what Hashem communicates to us. So that's what Alter Rebbe says, "V'lochein keshemedaber divrei Torah me'oira dibur elyon leyachad hashchina." He says, therefore, when a person speaking the words of Torah, he arouses the supernal speech and to bring leyachad hashchina, and this brings a unifying the Shechina. And for this reason, the law says, "Bekriya Shema u'bebirkas hamazon v'divrei Torah, delo yotza behiru v'lo dibur." It is established that when it comes to the saying of the Shema, there's a mitzvah to say the Shema twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. And the same thing is also birkas hamazon when you say the grace after the meal. You say we say a blessing before we eat, but it's even a biblical obligation to say the grace after the meal. When you finish eating, to say the blessing, and this is also something that has to be verbalized. You cannot just read it or think it. You have to verbalize this. And so too, v'divrei Torah. Same thing is when you study Torah. You go into yeshiva, you see people studying Torah. It's not like a public library where everybody's quiet, sitting, reading for themselves. And learning Torah, we verbalize. So in addition to the fact that when you verbalize something, it helps you and enhances your understanding as well. When you have an idea and you start talking about the idea, that enhances the idea and enhances the emotion as well. When you talk about something you feel strongly about, then the talking about it enhances the emotions. But in addition to that, when you speak the words of Torah, you're actually triggering the words of Hashem. When you use your speech to verbalize the words of Torah, which the words of Torah, the words of Hashem, so thereby it helps, and it is enacting and triggering the speech of Hashem, so to speak. And this is why it is important to verbalize those things. And one does not discharge his duty of saying those things, Shema, and the blessing of the food and the words of Torah, if one just, by meditating without speech, you're not fulfilling your obligation. So this is the end of today's shiur. Thank you very much for joining. Please join us tomorrow, 9 a.m. And please share all the best of a good HaKodesh and a successful HaKodesh. All the best.